Hello everyone, my name is Ashley and I wrote my paper on magical realism in 100 Years of Solitude. I mainly focused on Merriam-Webster's definition of magical realism, which is a literary genre or style associated especially with Latin America that incorporates fantastic or mythical elements into otherwise realistic fiction. So basically, the natural with the supernatural in simplest terms. Magical realism was first used by Franz a German art critic in the 1920s to describe new art forms that were popping up in art exhibits at the time. Magical realism was first seen in English in the 1960s. Authors at the time that were known for using magical realism in their writing were Miguel Ángel Asturias, Jorge Luis Borges, and Gabriel García Márquez. During this time, Latin American literature took off internationally, and the period of 1962 to 1967 was known as the boom period, as this was when it became popular worldwide. As for the novel itself, we see many cases of magical realism, such as one of our first examples. Early in the novel, we find out that Aureliano has these kind of psychic powers. His mother Ursula put a pot in the middle of the table, and Aureliano said plain as day that the pot was going to spill. As soon as he said that, the pot started slowly moving toward the edge of the table with nothing touching it. This example has two examples of magical realism. First, the premonition that the pot was going to fall is something that doesn't really happen in your day-to-day life. The second is the pot moving all on its own without any outside force. A man named Prudencio Aguilar makes fun of Jose Arcadio Buendia for being infertile, as there are rumors that Ursula is still a virgin months after their marriage. Now we know that they were afraid of the deformities that often come with inbreeding. Jose Arcadio killed Prudencio by impaling his throat. In the days following the murder, Jose Arcadio Buendia and Ursula see his ghost around their house and decide to pack up and leave Rio Hacha to give the ghost some peace. At one point in the novel, we learn that Melquiades has passed away. Melquiades was the leader of the gypsy tribe that brought most, if not all, of the new technology to Macondo. Later on, during the insomnia epidemic, while Jose Arcadio Buendia is looking for a cure for lost memories, a familiar stranger tells him to drink from a flask. This visitor turns out to be Melquiades. He sticks around for a hot minute and then dies again in Chapter 4. This is pretty significant because he's the first person to die and be buried in Macondo. Father Nicanor Rena is a priest brought to Macondo specifically for Remedios and Aureliano's wedding. He's kind of disturbed by the lack of religion in Macondo and wants to start raising money to build a church. After simply begging for money fails, he basically says, well, if you don't believe, here's an act of God to help you out. And he starts levitating right there. As we already know, Aureliano has these premonitions. We learn that he sees himself in front of the firing squad at the beginning of the novel before it happens. What he doesn't see is himself dying. We later learn that he escapes the firing squad and lives for many more years. One day after Jose Arcadio comes home from work, he goes straight to the bedroom and closes the door. A gunshot is heard, though it isn't clear whether or not he commits suicide. After he dies, a stream of blood came out from under the door, across the living room, went out to the street, climbed over curbs, turned corners, went under the Buendia's closed door, crossed the parlor, went into the living room, and into the kitchen where Ursula was. I don't know about you guys, but when I draw blood, it kind of just flows down onto the floor. And later on, we get another one of Aureliano's premonitions. This time, it's that his father, Jose Arcadio Buendia, is going to die soon. Ursula goes and unties him from the tree, where he's been for a few years now, and he takes him to the bed where he dies. We see that Ursula nurses him all the way until the end. Before the 17 Aurelianos scatter along the coast, they go to church on Ash Wednesday and receive their ashes. Later on, when they go to wipe off their ashes, they find that they're permanent, but only on the Aurelianos. Everyone else has no problem removing them. Aureliano II, one half of the set of twins by Santa Sofia de la Piedad, and Arcadio, Jose Arcadio's son with Pilar Ternera, likes to spend time in Melquiades' room in the Buendia compound. He likes to try to decipher the manuscripts left by Melquiades, and one day he realized that he was not alone in the room. Melquiades was there, looking about 40 years old, and met with Aureliano II in private almost every day for years. This is supernatural again, because people don't usually come back from the dead, much less do they do it twice. One day, Remedios, the beauty, is overcome by this intense paleness. Amaranta asks if she was feeling okay, and she said she's never felt better. She then proceeds to ascend into the sky, never to be seen again. We really only see this in the Bible when Jesus ascends into heaven. Aureliano II has an affair with Petra Coates behind his wife Fernanda's back. The sex is so frequent that it seems to cause an increase in the breeding of animals as well. Soon, there is an abundance of cows, pigs, and chickens. After birthing Amaranta Ursula, Fernanda becomes sickly and talks to invisible doctors who are trying to find a cure for her. The doctors eventually tell her that whatever sickness she has can be cured with suppositories, and she's cured. Generally, doctors are physical beings that you go see, not invisible beings that only one person can talk to, making this a supernatural element of magical realism. Amaranta still hates her adoptive sister Rebecca with every bone in her body. She starts making Rebecca a funeral shroud one day when Death comes and talks to her. Death says that she should start making her own funeral shroud. It can be intricate as she wants, but when she's finished, that's when she'll die. She somehow becomes more at peace and starts creating a complex funeral shroud. When she finishes, she dies. Death talking to someone is supernatural. Renata Remedios, or Meme, is the child of Aureliano II and Fernanda. She's in love with a man named Mauricio Babilonia. Every time he comes around, she's surrounded by yellow butterflies. I don't know about you guys, but whenever my boyfriend comes around, I'm not surrounded by yellow butterflies. They kind of just stay in my stomach. And eventually Ursula dies. She hid her father's gold in a place that only she knew and would not tell anyone where she hid it. One day, Ursula's bed had a glow coming out from underneath. It was the gold, and Jose Arcadio found it and spent it as he pleased. Gold shines but doesn't glow, making this event a supernatural one. So that's all of the examples I have for you today. But I just wanted to talk about how magical realism really ties into speculative fiction, because speculative fiction is defined as a genre of fiction that encompasses works in which the setting is other than the real world, involving supernatural, futuristic, or imagined elements. And the definition that I gave of magical realism is, it pretty closely ties into that, I think. And yeah, like, this novel really embodies that genre of speculative fiction, and it's very clear to see why this novel won a Nobel Prize.